Hello and welcome to this new video from Byte Analytics. And in today's video, we're going to look at how we can filter down a slicer to look at entries just where we have valid data. So often we have a slicer which will have a full list of attributes in there, but not every attribute is actually going to give us any data. And if we want to trim that down to keep it meaningful for the user, then we need to limit it down to entries where values actually exist. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here we are in Power BI Desktop, and I'm connected to my Notorious AdventureWorks database. So I have a visual here which is showing me sales, the sales amount by the country name, and a table at the bottom which is giving me the sales amount by the calendar year. Now in this instance, it's quite good. I'm seeing the sales amount for each calendar year where the sales actually exist. However, when I create a slicer, or if I was to create a slicer for the user to be able to pick the calendar year, then things start to look a little bit different. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So let's go over to the dim date, and I'm going to add calendar year to the canvas. Notice when I do that, it's actually summing it up. So this is something we often skip over. This is housekeeping around the model. So by default, the summarization against some of these attributes is set to sum. Now, what we should be doing actually as best practice is going back over the attributes in our model and selecting whether they need to be summing or aggregating to any extent or not summarizing at all. So in this case, I need to click on calendar year, and it opens up the column tools menu for me, and I can see the default summarization is to sum. In our case, we don't really want to do that, so I'm going to click Don't Summarize. And now if I was to delete this card here, and let's drag out calendar year once more, notice how the symbol has now disappeared against calendar year. And if I drag that out now, you should be able to see I have a full list of attributes, or members as we call it, from the calendar year column. Now let's change that over to a slicer, and let's go to slicer settings, and let's pick vertical list. Great, so I have all the years from 2005 to 2014. The problem now, however, is, hopefully it's evident, is if I click on 2005, there's no data for those years. And we can see that because the visuals are not updating. So if I deselect everything, I can see the data only exists for 2011, 12, 13, and 14. So how can I limit my slicer just to show me the years where we have valid data? Let's take a look at how we can do that. We can actually make use of our measure. So we have an existing measure called sales amount, which we can see is being used in the visual over here and the table at the bottom. So if I was to click on my slicer here and open up the filter pane, I can see I have a couple of options. I can filter on these. I can place a filter on this particular visual on the page or across all pages. In my case, what I really want to do is filter the visual down to the years where we have values. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to place the sales amount measure on this actual visual here. And whilst we don't see it on the canvas itself, this measure is going to be used to filter down the entries in this visual. So let's do that. I'm going to drag my sales amount and place it in the filter pane against that visual. And now I have the option to actually select what I want to do with it. And I want to filter this visual down based on this condition here. And the condition is that for all the entries in the calendar year, my sales amount measure must not be a blank. So if I drop down the list here, I'm going to select is not blank. And now I'm going to hit apply. And with that, you can see now that I'm now limiting my calendar year down just to those years whereby we have valid sales against those attribute members. And that's how we can tidy up our long lists of slicers potentially. I see so many reports where we have slicers which are going on and on, but we don't necessarily have all the data against them. And this becomes difficult for the user to consume and understand. So by using this small trick here, we can limit the slicer panel down just to the relevant data and make the reports much more usable and user-friendly for our users. Now that we've got this over here, we can actually do away with our table as well. And the slicer can go anywhere on the page now. It will take less space and it's going to be more meaningful for the user to consume. So that's been a small tip for Power BI today. I hope that will help you tidy up your reports and make them more meaningful and refined for your user audience. If you're doing this any other way, please let me know. There's always 101 ways in which tasks can be achieved in Power BI, and I'd be interested to hear how you're achieving this in your reports. Stay tuned for more updates on Byte Analytics.